Jayagrudev, as we continue to explore the teachings of Shikhi Dwaja and Chudala, another important aspect comes to mind, the concept of vairagya or detachment and how it is often misunderstood in the context of worldly responsibilities. Chudala, despite being deeply realized, continued her role as queen while Shikhi Dwaja sought to renounce everything outwardly. How can we bridge the gap between these two perspectives in modern spiritual practice? Yes, this is a very important question. Vairagya is often seen as a rejection of the material world, a mindset where one thinks that true spirituality means abandoning worldly pleasures. However, Yoga Vasistha presents a different perspective through Chudala's life. She shows us that detachment is not about rejecting the world, but about developing non attachment to the outcomes of actions and desires. The essence of true Vairagya is about mental detachment, not physical renunciation. The mind, when free from desires, attachments, and expectations, remains undisturbed, regardless of external circumstances in the modern world. We are often bound by the need for success, recognition, and possessions, but true Vairagya means enjoying life without clinging to it. When you practice meditation and Sudarshan Kriya, the mind becomes quieter and clearer, allowing us to cultivate that sense of detachment while still engaging fully with life. That's an insightful take on Vairagya. It seems that the teachings of Chudala provide a much needed corrective to the prevalent notion of renunciation. Now, Chudala, in her wisdom, not only guides her husband, but also helps him awaken to his own potential. Could you expand on how this story speaks to the power of self realization and its impact on others? Chudala's life on Shikhidwaja is not through force or command, rather, it is through the awakening of his own inner potential. She embodies the understanding that every individual has the capacity for self realization, and that capacity lies dormant within. When she speaks to him, she doesn't give him ready made solutions. Instead, she helps him unlock his own understanding of the truth. This is a key point in the story. When we see guidance, often it is not about getting someone to tell us what to do, but about recognizing the truth within ourselves. The Yoga Vasistha teaches us that true knowledge is self knowledge. Through practices like meditation and the teachings of masters like His Holiness Gurudev Shri Shri Ravi Shankar Ji, we realize that the answers to our deepest questions lie within. We only need the right tools, the teachers' wisdom, and the willingness to introspect. In the art of living, we emphasize that personal transformation is the first step to transforming the world around us. As we elevate our consciousness, we become instruments of positive change, just as Chodala did in Shikhi Dwajasa's life. This reminds me of a very crucial aspect of Yoga Vasistha, the idea that self realization is not just for individual liberation, but for the benefit of others as well. Can we discuss how Chodala's self realization and a guidance to Shikhidwaja led to a greater societal impact? Exactly, the realization of one's true nature is not for personal gain, but for the greater good. In the story of Shikhidwaja and Chodala, Chodala's role as a queen was not about accumulating personal power or prestige, it was about using her wisdom to uplift her husband and, by extension, her kingdom. This is a beautiful example of how self realization, when combined with compassion, can lead to service. Chodala's wisdom is not confined to her own liberation. She acts in the world from a place of deep understanding where every action is aligned with the highest truth. Similarly, in the art of living, we believe that true spirituality is not about escaping the world, but about transforming it through practices like Sudarshan Kriya, which purify the mind and emotions, and through living in accordance with higher values. We become instruments of peace, joy, love, and society. Self realization, in this sense, is not only for the individual but for the collective. When one person wakes up to their true nature, it creates a ripple effect. Just as Chudalas' wisdom influenced Shikidwaja, so too can one person's transformation influence their family, community, and the world at large. That's a very powerful message that self realization can indeed have a collective impact. Moving further, we notice that Shikidwaja, after receiving Chudalas' guidance, realizes the futility of his physical renunciation. What are the key lessons we can derive from his journey of transformation? Shikidwaja's transformation is significant because it illustrates that the true path to liberation is not about running away from the world but about embracing it with the right mindset. His journey teaches us that all external conditions are ultimately secondary to the inner state of mind, no matter where we go or what we renounce. If the mind is not at peace, we cannot experience liberation. One of the core lessons here is that liberation is a shift in consciousness. The external world, with all its distractions and temptations, can never offer lasting peace. True freedom is an inner state of being where the mind is free from fear, desires, and attachments. This is why practices like meditation are so essential. They help us transcend the surface level distractions and dive deeper into the true essence of who we are. Shikidwasa's realization that he was seeking freedom outside while the truth was always within is a powerful reminder for all of us. In our daily lives, we often look for solutions to our problems outside of ourselves, but the key to lasting peace and happiness lies in turning inward. It seems that Shikidwajasa's realization parallels the essence of many modern spiritual practices, particularly in the context of self awareness and mindfulness. Before we conclude, how can we apply the teachings of this story in our daily lives, especially in the art of living context? The story of Shikidwaja and Chudala teaches us that the journey toward liberation begins with the inner work of transforming the mind. In the art of living, we emphasize that true spirituality is about integrating wisdom into every aspect of life, from our work to our relationships. Practices like Sudarshan Kriya, meditation, and mindfulness helps us stay grounded and detached from the fluctuations of the mind, allowing us to act with clarity, love, and compassion. By cultivating inner peace through these practices, we naturally begin to let go of attachments and our relationships with the world transform. We start to experience joy not because of external circumstances, but because of the inner peace we cultivate. The story of Chudala and Shikidwaja is a perfect illustration of this journey, one that involves inner transformation and brings lasting peace and fulfillment. Thank you for these enlightening insights. It's clear that the teachings from the Yoga Vasistha, particularly the story of Shikidwaja and Chudala, offer timeless wisdom that remains incredibly relevant in today's world. By integrating these teachings into our daily lives, we can all aspire to live with greater peace, wisdom, and compassion. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev, and welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this in-depth discussion on the Yoga Vasistha, specifically the Mumukshu Prakaranam, which addresses the longing for liberation and the realization of the futility of worldly pleasures. Could you begin by explaining what Mumukshu means in the context of the Yoga Vasistha? Jai Gurudev, and thank you for this opportunity. The Mumukshu refers to one who yearns for liberation, one who has an intense desire for moksha in the Yoga Vasistha. This longing for liberation arises from a deeper understanding of the transient pleasures of the world are ultimately unsatisfying. This is the core theme of the Mumukshu Prakaranam, where Sage Vasistha speaks to Lord Rama about the futility of worldly pleasures and the path towards the realization of the true self. That's insightful. Could you elaborate on how the text portrays the futility of worldly pleasures and what are some key lessons that we can draw from this? The Yoga Vasistha describes worldly pleasures as fleeting and illusory. Sage Vasistha highlights that sensory pleasures, whether physical, emotional, or material, offer only temporary satisfaction. Once the experience is over, there is a sense of emptiness, and the cycle of craving and disappointment continues. This constant cycle creates bondage, tying the mind to the external world. True liberation, however, can only be achieved when one recognizes the impermanence of these pleasures and seeks something deeper, inner peace and self realization. The text compares the mind to a monkey swinging from one branch to another, constantly searching for new experiences but never finding lasting contentment. The only way out of this cycle is through inner reflection and detachment from the illusion of pleasure. Through meditation, self inquiry, and surrender to the divine, one gradually comes to realize that the pursuit of worldly pleasures is futile. In this context, how does one begin to overcome the attachment to worldly pleasures and embrace the path to liberation? The first step, as taught in the Yoga Vasistha, is the developing a deep sense of determination or viveka and discrimination. This is the ability to differentiate between what is temporary and what is eternal, between what is real and what is illusory. When one develops viveka, the attachment to worldly pleasures begins to weaken because the mind starts to see them for what they truly are, transitory and ultimately unsatisfying. Another essential practice is meditation. Through regular meditation, especially practices like Sudarshan Kriya, one can calm the mind and attain clarity. This clarity helps in recognizing that the pursuit of worldly pleasures, while natural, is not the ultimate goal of life. The mind, when free from distractions and cravings, naturally turns inward towards the self. In your experience as an art of living teacher, how does this realization of the futility of worldly pleasures impact an individual's life on a practical level? When an individual begins to realize the futility of worldly pleasures, their entire approach to life changes. They experience a profound shift in their values and priorities. Instead of seeking happiness in external possessions, achievements, or experiences, they start finding contentment in the present moment, in their inner peace, and in their connection with the divine. This does not mean renouncing the world completely, but rather living in the world with a detached attitude. They can still enjoy life, but the attachment to outcomes or desires diminishes. For instance, someone who once chased success or material wealth relentlessly may now approach their work with a sense of purpose, but without the anxiety of needing to prove themselves. Their happiness no longer depends on external circumstances, but on their own inner state. How does the guidance of His Holiness Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar Ji helps students and seekers navigate this realization? Gurudev's teachings beautifully complement the wisdom found in the Yoga Vasistha. He encourages us to recognize the futility of worldly pleasures while still remaining engaged with life. His emphasis on meditation, the Sudarshan Kriya, and the importance of seva or selfless service helps the seekers remain grounded in their quest for liberation while still living a balanced and fulfilling life. Through Gurudev's guidance, we learn to cultivate witness consciousness, the ability to observe our thoughts and desires without identifying with them. This practice is essential in realizing that we are not the sum of our desires, but nor are we bound by the fleeting pleasures of the world. Gurudev also teaches us to trust in the divine plan, letting go of the need for control and surrendering to a higher wisdom. This surrender brings deep peace and freedom from the constant chase of external validation or gratification. Finally, how can someone integrate the teachings of the Moksha Prakaranam into their daily life? The key lies in consistent practice and inner reflection. One can begin by observing their desires and attachments, questioning whether they truly bring lasting happiness through regular meditation, mindfulness, and self inquiry. One can deepen their awareness and gradually shift their focus from external pleasures to internal fulfillment. It's also important to practice gratitude, contentment, and selfless service, qualities that nurture the heart and bring us closer to realizing the truth of our existence. Additionally, attending satsangs or spiritual gatherings, listening to the teachings of Gurudev, and discussing spiritual topics with like minded seekers can further help reinforce the realization of the futility of worldly pleasures and guide us and one to the path to liberation. Thank you so much for sharing these profound insights. The teachings from the Mumuksha Prakaranam and the guidance of His Holiness Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar Ji indeed provide a powerful roadmap to living a life of peace, fulfillment, and ultimately liberation. Thank you for this opportunity. May everyone find the courage and wisdom to embark on this beautiful journey of self realization. Jai Gurudev. Okay, Gurudev, let's delve deeper into some additional points. One of the key aspects discussed in the Mumuksha Prakaranam is the distinction between Brahman, the absolute reality, and the transient nature of the world. How does understanding this distinction help in reducing attachment to worldly pleasures? This distinction between Brahman and the transient world is crucial in shifting our perspective. The world as we experience it through our senses is fleeting. All material objects, experiences, and relationships are impermanent. However, Brahman, the supreme consciousness, remains unchanged and eternal. Once we understand that the essence of all beings is Brahman, we begin to realize that our true identity is not bound by the limitations of the physical world. When we identify with the eternal and the unchanging nature of Brahman, the attachment to worldly pleasures diminishes. We no longer look for lasting happiness in external circumstances because we begin to realize that the true source of joy lies within us, in our connection with the infinite. This realization is a transformative shift that allows one to live more peacefully, knowing that all the transient things in life are only passing phenomenon. That's a profound realization. Another aspect of the Mumuksha Prakaranam focuses on the futility or pleasure derived from sensory experiences. How does the practice of vairagya or dispassion play a role in this understanding? Vairagya or dispassion is an essential practice in overcoming attachment to sensory pleasures. Dispassion does not mean renouncing the world or withdrawing from it. Rather, it means not being emotionally entangled or dependent on external experiences for happiness. Through Vairagya, one begins to see that pleasures derived from sensory experiences are inherently limited and transient. The joy from material gains, fame, and even relationships, while real in the moment, is short lived and often leads to a craving for more. Vairagya teaches us to cultivate inner contentment and peace. As one practices this dispassion, they experience a shift in their perception. What once appeared as a source of happiness becomes less compelling. We start to see beyond the immediate sensory pleasure and realize that lasting joy can only come from within. Gurudev often emphasizes that true fulfillment comes when we are connected to the divine source, and that connection is independent of external circumstances. In today's fast paced, pleasure driven world where instant gratification is the norm, how can we balance this realization with our daily life and responsibilities? This is an excellent question. In today's world where distractions are abundant and there is a constant pull towards sensory pleasures, it can be challenging to maintain this understanding. However, the key is to live mindfully. Mindfulness helps us to be fully present in each moment rather than being distracted by the desire for future pleasures or regrets about past ones. By incorporating spiritual practices like meditation, Sudarshan Kriya, and deep breathing exercises, we train the mind to be calm, centered, and focused. When the mind is calm, it naturally becomes more discerning, able to recognize the transient nature of external pleasures. The practice of seva or selfless service also helps anchor us in the present moment, shifting our focus from personal gratification to serving others. This serves as a constant reminder that fulfillment comes not from seeking pleasure, but from contributing to the greater good. Moreover, it's about creating harmony in the material and spiritual aspects of life. You can still fulfill your responsibilities, work, relationships, and personal ambitions. But when you practice Vairagya in a balanced way, you approach these duties without attachment. Success, failure, or any outcome no longer define your happiness. Your inner peace and satisfaction become the foundation of your life, regardless of external circumstances. So, would you say that true liberation doesn't require us to abandon our responsibilities or desires, but to transform our relationship with them? Absolutely. True liberation isn't about renouncing the world or becoming a recluse. It's about transforming our relationship with the world. We still fulfill our duties and engage in life's pleasures, but we do so with a different attitude, one of detachment, awareness, and inner peace. We no longer seek external validation or depend on sensory pleasures of our sense of self worth. Gurudev often speaks about as the natural state of being. This is when you perform actions effortlessly with a sense of joy and equanimity without getting attached to the results. Liberation comes when you realize that you are not the body, the mind, or the desires, but the pure consciousness that witnesses everything. Once you identify with this true self, you experience freedom even while living in the world. In this light, how does the concept of Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss help in overcoming the attachment to fleeting pleasures? Satchitananda is the essence of the true self. It is the ultimate state of being. By recognizing that our true nature is Satchitananda, we understand that we are not defined by the transient experiences or pleasure and pain. Sat or existence, Chit or consciousness, and Ananda or bliss are our inherent qualities. These are eternal and cannot be affected by the changing circumstances of the world. When one meditates on Satchitananda, they come to realize that real bliss doesn't come from external sources, but from the recognition of our connection to this infinite eternal essence. The pursuit of worldly pleasures is ultimately a search for Ananda, but it is often sought in the wrong places. When we connect to Satchitananda, we realize that true bliss is already within us, unchanging and unshakable, independent of any external experiences. This recognition naturally lessens the hold of worldly pleasures on the mind and brings a sense of inner peace and fulfillment. Thank you for these profound insights. It seems that the realization of the futility of worldly pleasures is not about renouncing the world, but about awakening to a deeper truth within. Exactly, it's about shifting our focus inward and realizing that our true nature is beyond the fleeting experiences of the external world. When we connect to that inner essence, we live with more peace, purpose, and joy, regardless of external circumstances. This is the essence of the teachings of the Mumuksha Prakaranam and the heart of the spiritual path laid out by Gurudev. May all beings discover this truth within themselves and live in harmony with it. Once again, thank you so much for sharing these teachings with us. We hope this conversation helps others on their journey to liberation. It's my pleasure. May everyone experience the freedom and bliss that comes from recognizing their true self, Jagadev.